Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to one and all. And I welcome you all to this webinar. I'm Madhur Jain from Suntech, and I'll be your host today. Let me first begin with a quick introduction of Suntech. For those of you who don't know, Suntech is the leading company in customer-centric relationship pricing and billing products. And Suntech helps its clients increase the lifetime value of their customer relationships through real-time customer engagement orchestration and contextual product innovation. With more than 130 clients in 45 countries, Suntech is a trusted partner of leading global organizations, including banks, other financial institutions, as well as organizations from other industries. So let's go into the webinar straight off. The topic of the webinar, to repeat, is build the digital bank of tomorrow by transforming product experience. Now, let me give you a brief context of what's today's presentation and what will be the Q&A and the topic which will be discussed by both the speakers. Now, to stay competitive and succeed, a bank must future-proof itself by creating long-term competitive advantage, and that advantage will come in only if they are able to fundamentally reimagine, redefine the value that they can offer their customers. And in today's scenarios, they have to go beyond just leveraging the latest technologies or business models and actually provide differentiated and delightful customer experience as the single most as a single most important dimension in deciding the success of a bank. To survive and to grow, the banking industry must understand their customers and provide an unparalleled experience. What we look to do in today's webinar is that the speakers will share insights on technology strategies that banks can adopt to deliver a much needed customer-centric product experience, which then actually builds customer loyalty, increases customer retention, and delivers to them a long-time sustainable competitive advantage. Now, without further ado, let me go into the actual webinar, and it is my pleasure now to introduce the first speaker, Managing Director Siew Choo. She heads the consumer banking and big data analytics technology at DBS Bank. She has been instrumental in driving major transformations in the technology talent pool and architecture of DBS over the years, including but not limited to the insourcing of technology resources, re-architecting of major platforms towards cloud-native architectures, our adoption of platform as a service, and agile as a business practice. She has also led the ANZ integration across 5 markets into DBS and for the creation of the enterprise data platform, which has been fundamental in transforming DBS into a data-driven company. Siew Choo, it's our pleasure to welcome you, and over to you, Siew Choo.
Thank you very much, Madhu. So for those of you who are not familiar with DBS, DBS is a leading bank in Asia, the biggest bank in Southeast Asia. In Singapore, we have more than 50% of the market share. We are headquartered here and we have presence in 18 markets globally with 28,000 staff. We believe that the biggest competitors for us are not the other banks or fintech, but the tech fins, the big techs who are coming into the financial services space. Hence, to remain relevant, we believe that we need to reimagine banking, to make banking simple, seamless, and invisible, so that our customer can spend more of their time living rather than banking. We are the bank that wants you to live more, bank less. This is our motto. To get there, we believe that we need to be willing to re-architect our platforms to be cloud native. Sorry. So to get there, we believe that we need to be willing to re-architect our platform to be cloud native. On our digital transformation journey, we believe that we have to focus on 3 things. First one is to become digital to the core. Second, to embed ourselves in the customer journey to make DBS invisible. And lastly, to create a 28,000 people startup. And that is our focus on culture. On digital to the core, we invest to ensure that we are not, sorry, just going back. Sorry. Just give me 1 minute. So on digital to the core, we invest to ensure that we are not applying the digital lipstick. We go beyond the customer interfaces such as the digital apps or internet banking platform. It is the back end of the bank that enable the full digitalization. So what we have done, first, on the architecture, we invest to move our legacy architecture to modernize our system to be nimble so that we can compete on turnaround times and customer experience. We move towards microservices and cloud technology to substantially reduce the cost as well as to enable agility. We created common platforms and API to increase the agility to support the product changes that we are building. Secondly, we move from the waterfall practice to agile that is based on iterative and experiments. The next key focus has been to remove all the manual tasks, to embrace automation as well as DevOps in everything that we do in the bank, especially in technology and operations, as well as products. From an initiative perspective, we move from a concept of projects that is more short-term focused and that has a definite scope, budget, timeline to a platform model, which is more focused on long-term view and prioritization based on value of what is to be built. From an operations perspective, we have been advocating a culture of designing everything for no operations to ensure that everything is SDP for our back office. And finally, from a paper perspective, we have been investing a lot and focusing on removing everything that is paper-based to achieve full digitalization. For the technology transformation, we have started a program codenamed Gandalf. Who knows what Gandalf is? So for those who have watched the movie Lord of the Rings, he is apparently the one who leads you to the North Star. We wanted to emulate the big tech such as Google, Amazon, Netflix, Apple, LinkedIn, and Facebook in what they do. Gandalf stands for our key principles that we abide with in terms of our technology choices. So for example, building using open source. That is very much like what Google has been advocating, contributing towards the open source. Running on the cloud, that's what Amazon provides as well. Automating everything like Netflix. Designing and making sure that our apps has the quality of the design as good as that of Apple. Building a learning organization like LinkedIn and be very connected to our clients and our stakeholders like Facebook. So we hope that we can become the D in the Gandalf word. So the Gandalf agenda is made up of a framework of 5 major areas. First is around the shift from project to platform, which I've already explained just now. It is to incorporate the long-term infinite thinking into everything that we build for our products. Second is in developing high-performing agile teams. We created persistent cross-functional team that is autonomous and self-organizing in everything that we do. The third pillar is around automating everything as a code, CI/CD, and release automation. Fourth area is around designing for modern systems, API everything, microservices, blue-green deploy, auto-scaling, and self-healing. And finally, we need to reorganize ourselves such that business is tech and tech is business, and there is no silo in between the two areas. On embedding ourselves in the customer journey, we believe that being customer focused is not good enough. You have to be truly obsessed to truly offer something that is distinctive. We have to pioneer new frontiers. We have to lead with customer delight and to ensure that the work is hard to copy. And also to reinvent and to deliver on the unanticipated needs of the customer. In this respect, last year we launched the first fully virtual wealth management account opening process for our clients in Hong Kong. This marks a turning point for the time-pressed affluent customers that we have in Hong Kong by saving them time previously they have to spend at the branches and completing paper forms to get a wealth management account. The account opening process involved 5 stages, including downloading the app, letting it photograph your ID, taking a selfie, creating the login detail for the DigiBank app, uploading of your proof of address, and supplying a few personal details. The applications are processed within 1 working day. And this will lead you to the ability to invest in 7 global equities market, trade for 14 currency pairs in real time, and transfer funds on the same day across 42 international destinations without any charges. We hope to roll this out to all our other markets that we are in due time. Another area of focus for helping our customer to live more bankless is what we do on the Singapore DBS marketplace. By embedding ourselves in the journey of property and car purchases, we reduce the friction experienced by our customer. Next, we have launched the world's largest banking API platform in 2017. This is also part of our objective to invite all the developers out there to leverage the API that's exposed by the bank to reimagine the experiences that we can create for our customer. We have also integrated with many partners via API to provide a seamless experience for our clients. On customer servicing, we have also been investing to embed customer science to enable the journey monitoring of our customers, contextual servicing, and smart interventions by our call center. We also use the insights from here to drive feature optimization in all the apps that we provide to our clients, as well as to analyze the path that they have taken to understand how we can make the job to be done much more seamless. Late last year, we launched what we call the intelligent banking feature in some of the markets. And this is our ambition to provide the financial concierge service to our clients. In this intelligent banking service, we provide alerts to our customer in terms of higher than usual payments for your subscription, for example, bills that is coming due in the next 14 days, salary credit, as well as travel advisory, and other tips around what you need to do before you initiate your travel. That was prior to the COVID environment. So for example, in terms of travel insurance, foreign exchange that you have to purchase, and so on and so forth. We hope with this, we enable our customer to be able to spend more time living their life rather than handling the day-to-day banking activities. So the last pillar is around making a 28,000 people startup. And this is made up of 5 different areas. Firstly, on being customer obsessed, I have already elaborated just now. The next one is around being data driven, making use of data to inform us about what the next best action is with regards to our customer. The third pillar is around taking risks and driving experiment, followed by agile, which is fundamental to the culture of a startup, and create a continuous learning organization. The challenge of culture prevents most of the incumbent from true transformation. We are seeking in this endeavor to act like a 28,000 people startup, to be able to fundamentally take a leaf from the big tech companies to transform the entire company, to embrace innovation, experimentation, and entrepreneurship, to be customer obsessed, and to take more risks, and to use experiments as a way of working. So on agile and experimentation culture, we believe the more effective method is around changing the culture and mindset by doing instead of teaching. We promote transparency and ownership in everything that we do by providing the necessary ritual as well as the visuals that are apparent in all the physical spaces. So lastly, in terms of creating a sustainable change, we believe that the continuous learning organization is a fundamental pillar. And before I end my talk, I would like to actually share with you one of our favorite quote from Alvin Toffler. he says that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. We hope that with this mindset, we will continue to be relevant and continue to innovate ourselves to continue to add further value to all our clients. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Siew Choo, for that insightful experience. Just to summarize, you spoke about being digital to the core as one of the fundamental principles of what DBS is trying to do and embed themselves in the customer's journey. Essentially, you also spoke about your Gandalf agenda, which is basically driving the whole organization into becoming something which is absolutely customer centric and fundamentally driving the experience which the customer has. You referred to big techs many times as you would wanting to emulate this big techs, and you picked up, I would say, key points which fundamentally drives their success, which is all being around customer centric. Thank you very much for that. Now let's move on to our next speaker, Santanu. Santanu Dutt is the head of technology for Southeast Asia with Amazon Web Services. He's based in Singapore, where he, along with his organization, are responsible for educating companies with the service offerings of the AWS platform, of course, but essentially much more about helping organizations in their architecture best practices to build highly scalable and resilient applications on the AWS cloud. Over to you, Santanu.
All right, thank you for that introduction, Madhur, and thank you, Siew Choo, for your wonderful presentation. I guess one specific thing that I caught on that Siew Choo mentioned was around the culture. We strongly at Amazon also believe that a large part of transformation and innovation, in our opinion, and we are really strongly opinionated on this, is really culture of a company. It is not technology, it is not the staff, it is the culture that defines how you actually progress on transformation and innovation. And the reason I named my presentation as Constant Transformation is the New Normal is because we have reached a stage at AWS today where we are seeing our customers across industries, DBS definitely being one of the lighthouse customers, where the transformation isn't just happening once in a while or across a particular industry, but it's happening across industries, including in banks in a major way, and across all technologies. It's not just restricted to one particular domain or a technology. This is across analytics, machine learning, microservices, DevOps, mobility, fraud detection, and so on and so forth. And to give you a quick background about Amazon, I guess one thing that is prevalent in a company as a part of our culture is we treat ourselves as a day one company, which is sort of another way of saying that Siew Choo mentioned as to how do you run a company which is a 28,000 person company as a startup. And if you think about this concept, what we try and do as a part of our culture is literally create an environment within the company across all streams of Amazon's businesses, including AWS, in a way where employees literally start believing that it's very, 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 very early days in our journey, in spite of Amazon existing in the industry for 25 years and AWS for 14 years. In spite of all our achievements, we believe it's very, very early days. And that then triggers a mindset where people have this urgency of constantly serving our customers and working backwards from them, because they believe it's very, very early days. It's almost like a startup. It's day one. This picture that you see is actually a picture from our Seattle headquarters offices, and you will see these boards across all Amazon offices so that when we are hiring people, they know that, this is not a time to be complacent. So we are not a celebrate company. We don't celebrate successes too often because we believe there's a long, long way to go in terms of serving our customers. Now, along with that, right, it's all good to say that we are a day one company and let's start being one. But the other thing that is also essential that we also do, and we are privileged to have a founder and CEO who supports this, is we are an extremely long-term oriented company. We are not a company that turns up at a customer's doorstep in the last day of a quarter to make a quick buck. We are here literally to outlast us all. And if you look at our business models, at AWS, when we start engaging with enterprise customers, we first try and evangelize about our platform, our services, our features. Customers start trying us out. And by the time customers really move meaningful workloads onto the cloud on our platform, and we start getting meaningful revenue, it sometimes can be 12, 18, 24 months in some cases, or even beyond. before we start recognizing revenue, because that actually forces us to be customer obsessed. There is literally no concept of a deal size or a license deal or an AMC agreement or whatever in our world, and that is intentional. That is driven by Jeff and the S team. I don't know how many of you realize this, but the Kindle, which is our book e-reader, which has been existing for years, the price that you buy it for in a retail store is exactly equal to break even for us in terms of manufacturing costs. And the intention there is, if a customer buys a Kindle, goes back home and puts it in his or her closet and never buys a digital book again, then we don't make a cent. We don't make a penny on that Kindle, because we don't want to make profits and margins on things that don't add value. It's only when you buy the first digital book is when we start making our margins, which forces our book publishing team to actually remain customer obsessed. And that same philosophy is driven via AWS, and we are seeing customers almost reimagine their businesses. Because to me, if you ask me what is transformation, it's reimagining your business the way you serve your customers. It's not just iterating and improving certain processes that you do, but reimagining your business yourself, right? And we are seeing this in multiple areas with the AWS cloud platform with our customers. Right? We are seeing areas where fraud detection with banks is super important, and our customers in the banking space gave us feedback that, you know what, we don't really want to invest our time or all our time of our tech teams or our partners building algorithms for fraud detection, because our end customers, as banks, our end customers care that we do fraud detection. They don't really care as to what technology you use for fraud detection, as long as you do it well. And so recently we released Fraud Detector as a service, where it has used 20 years of machine learning experience from Amazon.com, and the same technology be given as an API as a service from AWS, so that our banking customers can start detecting with a data set on potential fake accounts, potential fake online payments, and so on and so forth within a matter of milliseconds, if not less. Clickstream analysis, like hyper personalization, is a new norm of this new age. We have been privileged at Amazon.com to have done it for years and have had lots of learnings. And now customers, including banks, are doing it on our platform. For example, if you have a bank and we have banks specifically without naming a specific bank, which basically give services where you as a customer can go to the console or the app or the website and open an account within 60 to 120 seconds with 5 clicks. Now, if a bank starts tracking clickstream analysis on the cloud in a really detailed way, you can then start tracking that was there a customer that couldn't open an account within 5 clicks and 120 seconds, and why? And so those logs are then analyzed automatically, and then you follow an iterative process where every single click is analyzed to ensure that your customers are getting the experience that you truly want them to get, which is maybe 60 to 120 seconds spending on your website, and with 5 clicks opening an account. On productivity, right? Some banks in Australia, including Commonwealth Bank and Macquarie Bank, have done something really innovative. Now, for a long time, the industry has imagined that banks aren't as technology oriented as technology companies are, right? But what we have seen in the last 18, 24 months is banks, including the likes of DBS and some of the other banks in ASEAN and Australia, are actually becoming almost like technology companies. For example, Macquarie Bank did something really cool for their internal developers. Now, their internal developers are big AWS users, and one of the challenges they had was the environment, that is a cloud platform in the environment in which they work for. They wanted to ensure that developers actually choose particular environments in their IT field or running on the AWS cloud, and close them, shut them down, or spawn them as per their office timings. Now, you can't predict when a developer will come to office or will not come to office, because everyone comes at a different time. It's not a 9 to 6 job. Everyone has their own different shifts or even their flexible timings. And what they did was they got approval from InfoSec to basically have a YubiKey, like a small device, which is a token, which is attached to their badging. And so each time a developer actually came to office and you swipe your badge, this small device then send an API call to the AWS cloud to spawn the developer's environment on the AWS cloud, so that by the time the developer went from the lobby, from the elevator to his or her desk, his or her developer resource environment on the AWS cloud was up and running. And same the other way around, when he or she was leaving the building, you scan your badge and then that automatically goes in, which means developers don't need to actually remember to shut down or spawn up their environments. It is in real time. The other thing that we're looking at is building ecosystems. So, obviously having banks and serving banks directly as a cloud platform is one thing. What we've also realized is building an ecosystem helps you scale. One of the banks across Southeast Asia is currently doing it. A bank in Australia has built this, taking a cue from Amazon's big data marketplace, where we have a data exchange marketplace. What they have done is adopting a more outward looking culture around technology development. And what this bank has done is created a big marketplace, a dev exchange as they call it, and open it up for external developers. Depending on terms and conditions they sign up on, the advantage that you have is you're open sourcing some of it. So the bank has, I guess, access to some of the algorithms and APIs they're developing. And for developers interested, they have access to a sandbox, like a development environment within the banking big data exchange place. And they have access to data which mimics real data, but it's not the actual data of customer accounts and banking data, etc. And so imagine in the future, you could have situations where the banks are collaborating with external developers to create business models, where someone's creating an algorithm to look at personal finance management or customer or consumer spending patterns and so on and so forth, and then building algorithms to innovate on that. With AWS directly, we work with a host of partners, that is consulting partners and ISVs in the banking ecosystem. UBX in Philippines is addressing a key challenge where 77% of that country is unbanked. Like there are no physical banks there simply because it's a nation of 7,000 islands. And so what UBX has done is launched their first ever country's blockchain-enabled platform to do retail lending and banking needs across micro, small, and medium end customers and institutions where the sectors are unbanked. We had a bank in Vietnam which recently launched on AWS, which actually used Mambu, which is an ISV platform, which helps you accelerate a digital bank immediately, which will now help this bank go global or across the region and scale very, very quickly. And again, there are alternate payment providers like fintech and other providers where the cloud basically enables them to innovate and work and focus on the end customers and focus on that rather than undifferentiated heavy lifting, which is managing infrastructure, DevOps, and their development environment, which is taken care by AWS Cloud. Now, talking about innovative use cases, right? We released a service called as Amazon Sumerian, which is basically a cloud service from us to help customers accelerate and get started on an AR, VR, 3D experience building platform. So creating avatars in 3D format, for example. Now, one of the banks called Union Bank, which is a digital bank in the Philippines, what they've done was something interesting, which is a couple of their bank branches leveraged Amazon Sumerian, where you can actually go in as a banking customer, use your mobile phone to scan this QR code, and this avatar, which is built by Amazon Sumerian, is an intelligent avatar, looks at your mobile number and starts talking to you as a part of the conversational interfaces that you're working on, which means as a customer, without even talking to a bank customer service agent in person, you already are halfway through to actually talking about your problem. This avatar is fed through data in terms of what your banking history has been and starts conversing with you. And by the time you actually go to the desk to the actual customer service rep, half of your queries might already be solved and you could actually be much more sold with an entire experience versus taking a token and a queue and then waiting in queue for a long time and potentially even getting turned off and going away from the bank. Computing at the edge is an interesting concept, and this is even before 5G was being talked at. We believe at AWS firmly that apart from having our cloud platform, which is central, a lot of use cases are also being done at the edge. And by edge, I mean branch offices or remote locations, healthcare institutes, remote banking branches, etc., etc. And for a long time, customers gave us feedback, including in stock exchanges and financial services and banks, that how about AWS extends its compute capabilities outside of the core data centers and your central cloud? And so we obviously working backwards from those customers came up with different options so that now you can actually do computing at the edge. And so we have services like Outpost or Snowball, where we actually ship on the order actual devices like these that you see or racks to customers, which is basically the AWS cloud sort of in a box, which is connected to the AWS cloud, and the local processing happens within your device. So if you're a bank with, I guess, local compliance regulatory requirements of doing data processing inside your premise itself, to even needing the cloud environment, but inside your environment because you have low millisecond latency requirements for your core applications or trading platforms, you could start using these models in an offline manner inside your premises. The last piece I would cover is machine learning and voice, which is really getting a lot of traction in the banking space. For a long time, there's been a myth that machine learning and AI is all about predictions. It's really a much, much more than that. It's about hyper personalization. It's about computer vision. It's about gaming. It's about cognitive services and helping your customers and serve them better, and so on and so forth. For example, Amazon.com has been using computer vision and machine learning for over 20 years, including on their front website as well as in the back-end warehouses. So we have machine learning enabled cameras, which basically scan through all our shelves in our warehouses and detect heat maps as to which shelves are empty and which shelves aren't, and then trigger alerts to fulfillment center workers saying, you know what, this shelf is not full, you're clearly wasting real estate space. And when a customer order comes in, when you place an order, it actually puts a small laser beam to a fulfillment center employee saying, this is where this exact order is, because this is what the customers ordered. And that same concept has been taken to, in some cases, to banking institutes where you're using computer vision to train a machine learning algorithm on the cloud to train them as to what does a fake currency note look like versus a real one. And based on that, you can then use computer vision to very, very easily have machine learning models screen out fake currency notes, which is another, I guess, type of use case of machine learning that we're seeing across the industry. Lastly, as a part of machine learning itself, cognitive services is getting really pervasive across the FSI industry in general and across banks. The anecdote that I like best, which I keep telling customers, is if you think about computers in general, right? So right from 50 years ago when the mainframes were invented, to desktop computers, to laptops, to iPads and tablets, to your smartphones, to your wearables on your body and your wrists. For most part, all computing needs of different kinds of computers, human beings have used two senses, touch and sight. We believe the third sense of humans, which is voice, is going to play a major role in computing needs in the next 10, 15 years, simply because human beings always take the least path to resistance. And voice comes much more naturally to human beings to speak to someone than using your fingers and your sight to do something via a mobile app or something. And that's why the ecosystem of cognitive services on the cloud is going to make a massive difference and is going to be used in applications throughout. Text to speech, speech to text, transcribing and natural language processing, creating chatbots. Capital One and the likes of banks did something smart a few years ago where they actually embedded a skill of a user's bank account that can actually give you information about your bank account if you had a small, $50 Echo Dot at your home. And so rather than actually calling a customer service agent and a call center, you could speak to your Echo and say, Alexa, just tell me if I take a car mortgage today, what would my liabilities be, and give me the breakdown. And that skill will do the math and tell you versus a person having to call a call center or putting up a spreadsheet and doing the math themselves. Lastly, with Amazon Connect, which is one of our intelligent call center solutions, we are seeing customers, including telcos and banks, adopt this in a massive way. And there's a reason for that. Globe Telecom in Philippines was one of the first to adopt this, but we're seeing a lot of banks going into this. And the reason for that is one among the top three reasons of customers perceiving that some banks don't give them good customer service is the long hold time when they call a call center. And with machine learning enabled technology, intelligent contact centers can actually make it much more intuitive for a call center agent in a bank to understand a customer's journey end to end, because this can integrate with your CRM systems. This could integrate with your data lake, which shows all the end-to-end journey of a customer. For example, if a customer has defaulted on a credit card payment and the customer just panics, the history shows that most customers would actually call a bank's call center to ask, hey, I've defaulted on my credit card, can you waive off my penalty because I've been a loyal customer for a long time. And so imagine a customer in the future calling a bank, and some banks already doing this on us, where if you're calling from a registered mobile number, there'll be an automatic voice message saying, hey, Mr. So-and-so, we know you have defaulted on a credit card payment. If that's the reason why you're calling us, please press 1. We have something for you. If not, press 2. And automatically that customer journey becomes much, much more seamless. Just before I end, a couple of things. Our philosophy at AWS has always been different, just like a retail mothership, Amazon.com, which is as we grow and have economies of scale, we actually, rather than keeping those margins, continuously reduce pricing. In our history of 14 years of existence, we have actually proactively reduced pricing on our services and products on the cloud 79 times without any competitive pressure. And so one of the interesting conversations I have with CFOs and banks when they ask us about TCO of running on the cloud is that your cost that you see today on AWS will never go up or stay same. It is likely to go down next year and then further down next year and so on and so forth, simply because we are always reducing pricing. Just before I end, I thought I'll take another maybe 45-50 seconds to just showcase a quick demo, which I just recorded, right? Because the fun is in looking at a demo. And I'll talk about and show you something that's very obvious about the intelligent call center, which a lot of banks are starting to use. And this uses machine learning at the back end. Let me actually remove my earphones so that this can. I'll just play this video, which is a live recording of a demo, and then I'll explain this. Should be self-explanatory. Basic queue.
Hi, John. I've been a customer for 2 years now, and I just received a notice that the special pricing I got when I first signed up is about to expire in 2 weeks. I called yesterday and I spoke to Steve, but unfortunately, he wasn't very much help. I checked your competitor's website and they are offering better pricing.
And so what you saw there, although it was self-explanatory, maybe I'll just take you through the next 15 seconds of what that was. There was a call coming in from a hypothetical customer. It's automatically transcribing whatever the customer is talking on to the agent. It's underlying the key phrases by using machine learning, so you can actually quickly skim through it without hearing every single word and sentence. In real time, it's doing a translation to Mandarin or Chinese. On the bottom half, if you have an agent that maybe needs some help with a language translation from English. If you notice on the top, there was an emoji that was sort of changing depending on the customer sentiment. And so clearly this customer sentiment is not happy, and this emoji shows that, and the customer sentiment is red. And then based on what the customer is telling you, it actually can go in from your internal database and pick up offers and suggested options to address the customer even before the agent has started speaking. Simply because this is a price problem the customer is talking about, there are potential discount and loyalty offers that an agent can offer to this customer. And so, as you can see, it just becomes extremely intuitive for an agent sitting on a bank's contact center to actually address a customer's need, because there's someone else doing the work for them, and that's a machine learning algorithm behind the contact center. This, as you saw in the previous slide as well, our CI of Globe, the largest telco in Philippines, has said that it's reduced the average customer handling call time by a massive amount, by 35 to 40%, and similarly with banks as well. And then obviously you can extend this to the anecdote that I gave, which is integrating this with your CRM systems, your analytics, etc., so that when your customers call you from a registered mobile number, there are pop-ups coming up saying this customer clearly has so-and-so credit card, and this is what the history of that is, and this is what recently happened as recently as yesterday. That's it from me for now. Hope that was useful. Madhur, over to you.
Thank you, Santanu. Thank you for a very insightful session. If I were to summarize, see you, I think throughout your presentation or throughout your session, you've spoken about an organization being customer obsessed, which includes yours, but also essentially the how banks, if I would say, can use cloud and the attendant technologies which are enabled seamlessly by the cloud, adopting the cloud platform, to actually reimagine the way they are dealing with their customers, reimagine experiences, essentially doing that hyper personalization which you spoke about. So how can a bank innovate, and that innovation, that experience, how can that be accelerated, if you would say, through continuous transformation using the cloud? That's your perspective, and that's what I would say. Siew Choo, if you could join us as well on camera, please. Let's go into the questions. We have some questions coming up. The first question, Siew Choo, is to you, essentially saying that what DBS has done, and this is coming from probably a competitor of yours, is truly phenomenal. And several banks have tried to emulate what DBS have done, but have not got the success which DBS has, both in the market, but also I would say in terms of how they are known throughout the banking world. What is the secret sauce that differentiates DBS?
I think there are two things. I think the first thing is leadership. So this transformation has to be driven from the top, right? From the board, the CEO, the chairman, and their management team. So I think that is what we got at DBS. Secondly, I think it is the key emphasis that we have, or our CEO has an emphasis that actually, it is bottom up. When we talk about innovation and transformation, it's bottom up, and he used to use the term, we want to let the 28,000 flowers bloom. So the innovation and transformation is not to be exclusive to a certain group or department only. It is everywhere in the bank, whether it is in the product team, the salespeople, the operations people, in HR, and all the supporting services. So it's actually pervasive. I think that has been, I think, the differentiator of DBS versus maybe other mechanism that other company has adopted.
Thank you. Santanu, a question to you first. And this is simpler. The next one is a slightly more, should I say, not controversial, but slightly more, require a little bit of more thinking. But the first one is easier. Typically, in what areas do you see banks adopting cloud? What are they moving to cloud and what not? This question comes in from a perspective of obviously banking being far more regulated than other industries, and hence an idea about what are the first, if you'd say first areas which banks adopt, and then bring it back into much more customer-centric applications, if you will.
Yeah, great question. Look, I mean, I have had the privilege of being in the company at AWS for nearly 9.5 years. Back then, things were different. Banks really didn't do much, at least in this part of the world, on the cloud for regulatory or in other reasons of lack of awareness. Over time, what we have seen is banks have started from moving their dev test environments to peripheral workloads, to analytics and machine learning related workloads, to even greenfield applications, creating new mobile apps, etc. Because it's much easier to get started on the cloud when you don't have a legacy and dependencies on premise. Over time, as we have worked backwards in taking feedback from what banks want us to offer, if you've seen my slides ahead from Outpost and computing at the edge, that's actually paved the path for banks to actually run many more core workloads, including potentially core finance banking core workloads on the cloud, in some cases at the edge and in some cases on AWS as well. And that's also been helped with the fact that we've actually opened many more regions or data centers across different countries, across 6 continents. So it's actually been a journey. Depending on where you are in the journey, depending on your regulatory environment, etc., and the country you belong to, it's actually differed by case-to-case basis. But yeah, the journey always starts from the peripheral and greenfield applications and goes towards the core.
Thank you. Question to you, Siew Choo. You spoke clearly about being customer obsessed and basically driving the customer experience. And to that, you obviously have to completely reimagine the way you've spoken about the way DBS has adopted itself, the way DBS has changed itself. And how much have cloud has actually helped you in this journey? So one of the companies obviously you look up to is AWS, but how much of cloud has actually helped you in your customer journey, not so much in actually, let's say, building your own organization becoming effective and efficient, but from a customer perspective, how much of a cloud has helped? How much has cloud helped actually? Yeah,
I think cloud computing definitely is an essential part, given the capability of elasticity and all the native capabilities that one would take a long time to reinvent on-prem, right? So it is a necessary prerequisite for providing a great customer experience, right? Whether it's to experiment what product or services you should be providing to your clients. Yeah, but I would say that technology is just one component, and in fact technology is not the most difficult component to tackle in the journey of this digital transformation. The most difficult part, I would say, is the culture of the people and the mindset. And then we spend a lot of focus on that piece. And if you have that piece tackled, I think all the rest of the other enabler will just come along, and people will just go out and reach out and use the most effective way to achieve the objective.
Thank you. One more question to you, Siew Choo. Now, you talked about actually building an ecosystem ecosystem. You talked about embedding yourself in the customer's journey, which means essentially providing them something which is extremely hyper personalized. So when you're working with partners and obviously providing on one end what the customers want, how critical is pricing and monetization working with your partners, and how do you manage that at that level of scale?
Actually, I think monetization is a secondary objective. The first objective is how DBS and the partner can come together and create a win-win,
Sorry,
right? Where the sum can you so I think monetization is a secondary objective, right? I think when we go into a partnership, especially around ecosystem, I think the first driver of and the underpinning principle around the partnership will be around how DBS and the partner can create a win-win situation that can actually ensure that the 1 + 1 is more than 2, right, for our customer. So that has always been our focus. If you make that happen, I think naturally the monetization will come as a result.
Okay, understood.
So to us, I think that that is the essence of a successful partnership.
Understood. One more question coming your way, Siew Choo, is very clearly there are market and business priorities which drive what you want to do, and at the same time you need to transform your technology to be able to meet the market and business priorities. How do you bring the balance about these sometimes competing priorities?
Yeah, so I think it's like flying an aeroplane while changing the engine, right? But actually, one of the way that we have been using, which I think is essential to our success, is that we never do a project, a technology project for the sake of technology change. So I like to say that we never want to do a project whereby we are changing from technology A to technology B without any kind of differentiating capabilities that is being created for the clients. So in our technology transformation, it is always done as part of a business and product and client and services transformation. So there is never a kind of technology only project whereby technical change is the main objective. Never. All the technology transformation, so we did many things. So we actually migrated away from the mainframe. We migrated away from monolith. We go into the microservice architecture pattern and so on and so forth. None of these big technology changes were done as a technology project. They were always done together with a business objective, actually.
Perfect, thank you.
So
I think we have time
in that way, you will be able to get the basically buy-in of the business, and I think you can kill two birds with one stone.
So we have time for the one last question, and this question is basically about regulators and regulations on the play they have. Now, on one end, we are talking about using a lot of customer data to give them the experience which they desire. On the second hand, we are also talking about moving a lot of data applications, etc., into cloud, which essentially means it's out of your control. We know MAS is a very progressive regulator as compared to the remaining part of the world. The question here is, when regulations do not keep pace with what is happening, how do you actually use cloud on one end, perspectives, but also provide experiences for clients which are not necessarily supported by the regulators? The question is to both of you. So,
okay,
Santanu, if you want to take your experience
you,
other than Singapore and talk about it, yeah. Please
Santanu, you can go first.
Okay, I'll go first and followed by Siew Choo. Look, yeah, it's one of the obvious questions that always comes up when I'm speaking to CEOs and CISOs and CIO banks, right? We do have a public policy team and a legal team which proactively actually works with major regulators across countries, not just for banking and FSI, but also stock exchanges, telcos, and so on and so forth. Because we absolutely believe that it's no point for us to move fast and go ahead without actually making the regulators aware of what we are doing, how we comply with some of the industry standard certifications, PCI DSS, SOC, ISO 27001, banking specific regulations, and so on and so forth, and how the workflow works. We have proven with controls in place that customers do not really lose access to data at all. At no given point in time does AWS have any access to customer data. Customers retain access to data, and there is something called a shared security model on the cloud. This is a common naive mistake that most customers make when they're new to the cloud. They think that Amazon has access to the data. The shared security model consists of a certain layer above which AWS manages or customers manage their own data and applications. So operating system, their applications on top of it, the data on top of it, and so on and so forth. And hypervisor level and below inside the data center is managed by us. And so some of these security policies and norms and best practices that customers follow inside the data center continue to be applicable as is from their operating system and above on the cloud as well. Nothing changes, to be honest. And then lastly, we've had obviously lots and lots of banks and telcos and other highly regulated industries working on us over the globe. And Amazon.com, which is one of our big internal customers that runs on AWS, processes and stores millions of credit card transactions every week. There's just no way Amazon.com would have done it for 25 years with sensitive data of our customers if it wasn't complying with all the regulators and laws running on the AWS platform. And obviously, I can speak about regulations and security and compliance about AWS for 2 days. It's that big a topic and an exciting one, something I'm very passionate about, but I'll probably stop there. So yeah, customers don't lose any control when they're on the cloud. They actually retain control.
So I think if I understand the question correctly, is how if you are in a country whereby the regulator is not supportive of public cloud, how do you still make yourself cloud enabled, right? So I think if one is so unfortunate to actually deal with such kind of regulator or countries, then I would say that there is still a range of private cloud, right? So for example, like Pivotal Cloud Foundry, OpenShift, VMware, that can give you some sort of cloud capability. Of course, with the on-prem, you don't achieve infinite scalability and you don't achieve a lot of the native capability, but it give you some sort of elasticity as well, actually, right? And also, I think these days, all our major cloud provider, AWS, Google, and so on, they also have a version of the hybrid cloud, the Outpost, the NTOS, and so on and so forth. So you probably can start from there with the internal private cloud, right? While trying to continue to work to lobby the regulator and to continue to educate them in terms of the benefit of the public cloud. So I would go along that line, actually.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Siew Choo, and thank you, Santanu, for the wonderful session. And thank you to all participants for joining us. Till the next time. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.